Hey friends, welcome back to DWTC. Today's episode is a particularly special one because I'm pulling back the curtain on something that's been a huge part of my journey over the last year and a half, and that's writing my books. I want to share why I wrote this first book, what it's about, and the lessons I've learned along the way. And if you've ever thought about writing a book yourself, or maybe it's been a quiet dream in the back of your mind, this episode is for you. Because here's the truth. If you have something to say, something that could help others in any way, you owe it to yourself to put it out into the world. So grab your cozy drink, settle in, and let's talk about writing, purpose, and turning dreams into a reality. So I've spent over 20 years in HR and operations, working in corporate spaces, leading teams, and now running my own consulting firm. Through it all, I've seen firsthand how messy and complicated human resources can be, how business owners, leaders, and even HR pros themselves often feel overwhelmed by the very thing that's supposed to support their people. And I've always believed that clarity is a gift, that if we can take something complex and break it down in a way that makes sense, we can help businesses not only function better, but thrive. That's what this book is about. It's a guide to the foundational areas of HR that every leader needs to understand. It's not a textbook. It's not dry. It's not full of technical jargon, even though I do capture a ton about the laws that impact your business. It's more focused on the real world, practical type of resource that leaders can turn to when they're making decisions about people. But beyond the HR side of things, I wrote this book because I know what it feels like to have knowledge and experience that could help others and to feel the pull to put it into words. Now, let's talk about the journey of actually writing it, because let me tell you, it's one thing to want to write a book and it's another thing to do it. So here are a few of the things that I've learned along the way. The first is you don't need permission to start. That seems like an obvious one, but so many of us are just sitting there not doing it. So no one's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, it's time to write your book. There might be like a sales company out there that's trying to, push people to write books or whatever. But outside of that, no one's going to come and tell you to do it. So if you feel the nudge at all, that's your sign. Start messy, start with notes on your phone, start by talking it out and capturing audio messages and converting them. Just start, whatever that looks like. The second is consistency beats inspiration. Writing a book is a lot like a marathon. It's about showing up even when you don't feel like it. Some days the words flow, other days it feels like pulling teeth. But progress comes from showing up again and again. And I've got to admit, I engaged my EFT tapping coach. There were a number of things that I had to do. I had my executive assistant put blocks on my calendar and hold me accountable to it because sometimes it felt fun and sometimes it felt like a job and I already have a job. And so it's a challenge, but being consistent in this area is key. The next is that your voice matters. There are millions of books on leadership, HR, business, or whatever your topic might be. Mine's about all of those things, but none of them have my specific voice, just as they don't have your specific voice, your perspective, or your experience. And if your story or your knowledge could help even one person, isn't that worth putting it out into the world? The fourth thing I've learned is that you're going to doubt yourself. There were plenty of moments when I wondered, who am I to write this? But here's the truth. No one else can tell your story or your perspective the way that you can. No one else has walked through your exact journey. So if you've ever thought about writing a book and then immediately talked yourself out of it, I want you to hear me say this. You are capable, you are qualified, and your words matter. And that's what I kept telling myself. So let's talk about why you should write your book. So maybe you've had an idea in the back of your mind for years. Maybe you've told yourself someday, or maybe you're not even sure what you'd write about, but something inside you is curious about being an author. So here's what I'll say. Writing a book is one of the most challenging yet rewarding things that you can do. It forces you to clarify your own thoughts, to your own experience, and to create something that lasts so long beyond you. You don't have to be a perfect writer. I certainly am not. You don't have to have all of the answers. I certainly don't. You just have to start. And if you're feeling overwhelmed by the idea of the whole process, trust me, I get it. but take it one step at a time. Brainstorm your ideas, talk it out, write one page, then another. If I can do it, so can you, I promise. You know me, the numbers are very motivating to me. So let's talk about some book stats. First, let's talk about the time investment it takes to write a book. So the time required to write a book varies widely among authors. For example, I saw that Stephen King aims to write 10 pages a day when he's writing a book, which means he completes a first draft in about 3 months. I would tell you that's pretty fast. In contrast, Tolkien took about 12 years to write The Lord of the Rings. Me specifically, it took me probably about 6 months to do the writing for book one. And really, I've got to be honest, those 6 months, I spent time writing books 1, 2, and 3. I wrote over 900 pages, and it wasn't until my publishing coach came to me and said, like, hey, this is not one book. Snooze fest. We need to break this into 3 books, that I was like, oh, I have a trilogy, which honestly, saying a trilogy like completely overstates it, because that sounds like a stimulating romance novel or, scary book or whatever, but is a 3-part series on HR. And I'm glad that we broke it down into 3 different books, because it was way too much for one book. And there were some natural breaks and natural progression. So it was really exciting for me to see this all come together. But it took me around 6 months. And then, of course, there's the editing process, and I did paid editing. So I did the first round of editing myself, which was one of the hardest parts, honestly, because I had spent all this time writing, and then to go back and start to edit was just painful. And then once I got done with my first round of edits, I had a paid editor. She did the first round. And then again, I went back and implemented her feedback, and that was hard because there were some conceptual changes that I need to make, and that took me a while. And then I took it back to her, and she did one final round of kind of like half editing of what I had changed. And so the process took a long time. It took well over a year for all of that. So let's talk about completion and publication rates. It's estimated that out of every 1,000 individuals who start writing a book, only about 30 complete it. And that just makes me literally to the moon when I saw that 1,000 people start writing their books, only 30 complete it. Of those, approximately 6 achieve publication. Now, there are so many people I've learned write a book with the goal of never publishing it. That's just therapeutic. That's journaling. I love that. So no knock on the 1,000 people who get their words down on paper. Hopefully someday when you're no longer on this earth, someone finds that manuscript and it makes them feel whole while they're missing you, or maybe they publish it for you. But 1,000 start, 6 hit publication. And at the time of recording this episode, I am this week sending everything, all of my final plans off to the publisher. And so I am in the final stages of this, and that data is really powerful to me. So let's talk about financial outcomes for authors. The research that I did, which is on BLS.gov, the median annual income for professional writers in the United States is $73,690 as of May of 2023. Now, I found this to be very interesting, and I hope that I'm, proven wrong. But just candidly, I've spent, somewhere between $15,000 and $16,000 to get this book written, edited, and published so far. That's a lot. And so my goal is to break even on this first book and just recoup the cost that I have. So that's what my goal is for this year when I baked that into my company goals and all of that. Now, a professional writer is a full-time writer. And so $73,690 maybe is more realistic for them because they're regularly writing. That's their job. They're doing book signings, speaking engagements, all of these different things. For me, my goal is just that break-even point with what I've spent on the book, because my goal is to get it out there from a thought leadership perspective, to stop repeating myself maybe so often and get this content in the hands of others. And also just to secure myself as a voice in this space, because I have dedicated my entire career to this. And I think it's important to capture that great work that I've done and the time dedicated and the commitment and put it in a book and memorialize it and make myself a published author in this area. All right, let's talk business benefits of authoring a book, which is mainly what I was focused on. So a survey of entrepreneurial authors revealed that 86% experienced business growth after publishing their book. And I've got to be honest, that's the number one reason why I wrote this book. Additionally, 72% secured speaking engagements and 63% received media opportunities post publication. That's data I found on grammarfactory.com. And that's great. I can totally see that happening. Just having that thought leadership outline of being an author, a published author, I can totally see where that comes into play. All right, let's wrap the stats with book publishing volume. So globally, approximately 2.2 million new books are published annually, highlighting both the competitiveness and the vast opportunities within the publishing industry. That is so many authors starting and writing books every year. It's unbelievable. And so, people might say books are dead in the time of podcast or whatever. I definitely think there's a space for both and always will be a space for both. So before we wrap, I'd like to give you a quick preview of my upcoming book. So what's my book actually about? It's called, no, just joking. I'm not announcing the title until it's truly ready for pre-order. I can't share all my secrets yet, but I can share it's designed for business owners, leaders, and HR professionals who want to build a strong, people-centered organization without getting lost in legal jargon or overcomplicated processes. This book is not just another HR textbook. It's a practical, no-nonsense guide to the 13 foundational areas of HR that every business leader needs to understand. So whether you're hiring your first employee, scaling your team, or trying to navigate compliance, my book helps you cut through the chaos and build an HR function that actually works. Book 1 is focused on the first 5 of those 13 foundational areas, which are the most foundational, the baseline areas of HR that every business, no matter what size, needs. Then I've got the 2 follow-up books that are diving more into the strategic and advanced HR concepts. So in book 1, you're going to find how to hire right the first time, avoid costly hiring mistakes by learning how to attract, interview, and onboard top talent. You're also going to find things about employee engagement and retention, keeping your best people by creating an environment where they actually want to stay. And you're also going to find a lot of HR compliance and law, but made simple, understanding key laws and policies without getting buried in red tape. It's that and so much more. So this book is for you if you've ever found yourself thinking the following things. I know people are the heart of my business, but I don't know how to do HR the right way. Or I want to create a great workplace culture, but I don't know where to start. Or I just need HR to be simple and effective, no fluff, and no wasted time. So I wrote this book because I've seen too many leaders struggle with HR, and I want to help you remove the guesswork and build a thriving team with confidence. Because the reality is this, there are all types of people. Some want to DIY it, some want to outsource it, and some want to have it in-house. That's just the way HR works. And so as you know, I've worked in-house in corporate HR. I did that for over 20 years, so I know what that looks like. I've also been doing fractional and project-based HR work, and fractional just means essentially part-time. I do that in my consulting firm, Salt and Light Advisors, but I've also been a huge proponent of DIY. Like sometimes people will call me and say they need something. I just had a call this morning with a client and they're like, how do we bring you on board? I'm like, okay, what are you working with? They told me their issue. I gave them some guidance and I said, you can engage me to support you through this from an accountability perspective, but you can do this yourself. If you don't want to, if you're afraid to, and here are the potential legal risks, if you don't have the time allocated, I'm happy to do it for you. But I want to be clear, you can do this yourself. And so I had said that to many clients. Here's how you can do it yourself. It's not that I don't want to take on the work. I love taking on the work. I've literally made this my life's work, but I want to be clear that you can learn about HR and do it yourself. So if you're the business owner or the leader or the green HR pro or the person who wants to go into HR and you want to figure out how to do some of this yourself to either save money, save time, do it in-house, whatever, like I wrote the book for you. So you can DIY it if you want to, or use it as a resource guide, or literally just support me because you love me. I would love that too. So if you want to get your hands on a copy, what do we do here? I want you to stay tuned for the release date and make sure you're on my email list to be the first to know when it's available. So if you go to saltandlightadvisors.com/book1, so BOOKONE, you can get placed on the wait list. So you are the first to know when it's ready for pre-order on Amazon or Kindle. Literally, if you get on that list, I am going to read your name and your email address and your phone number, and I'm going to thank God for you because I have worked so hard on this, and just knowing that people either see the value or desire to support me is truly a gift, just like you tuning into this podcast and leaving a review or subscribing or, following us on YouTube or Apple or Spotify. I'm so grateful. If you're a small to mid-sized business owner, you know what I'm saying here. When somebody buys from you or supports you in some way, it makes a huge impact. So I am grateful. I'm grateful that you're even listening right now. If you want to sign up for that pre-order list, I would be super, super thankful. So if you're a business owner, a leader, or just someone who believes that people are the foundation of every great company, my book is for you. As I wrap up this episode, here's my challenge for you all. If you've ever thought about writing a book, I would love for you to take one small step today. Just jot down some ideas. Say your thoughts out loud and record them. Just start and let it be messy. That's exactly what I did. And I've just got to be candid. I have a book in my heart about leadership, and I can't wait to tell you about that one. But every time I started writing it or thinking about the concepts or putting some thoughts together, I just kept thinking about HR. This is what I've been doing for 20 years. And I'm going to say 8 to 5, but if you know me at all, you know my waking to my sleeping is about my work, especially when I worked in corporate and had way less balance in my life. I have spent so many hours of my life focused on this. And so I was like, you know what? I want to write this other book that's a little more conceptual, a little more theoretical, but I've got to get these basic HR foundations out of my head, or at least onto paper, because I just kept thinking about everything that I wanted to capture around HR. That's why I got going and I just started writing. I was like, all right, what are the key areas of HR that every business needs to know? And I started thinking through it. That's how I landed on the number 13, the 13 foundational areas. I wasn't trying to be like quippy with 13, or that's just literally what I think you need for the HR foundation are these 13 key areas. And then I started jotting down the laws and the processes, the templates, the tools, some data that I knew, some stories that I had, and then it started filling out the chapters. That's how I got going. If this episode resonated with you, send me a message. I'd love to hear what's been on your heart to write and encourage you in any way that I can. Friends, your words matter. Your story matters. Don't wait for the perfect time because it doesn't exist. Just start. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you liked the episode, take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend who might need a little encouragement in this area. I would appreciate that more than you know. Taking the actions necessary to reach our dreams can feel like just one more thing on the to-do list. It just adds to the chaos, right? But don't waste that chaos. Embrace it. Till next time.